when Herm made a decision to go with Waltrip, he has 3 or 4 really good offers, and AJ Foyt's always been a hero slip somewhat to him what AJ's accomplished. So he picked AJ over the hero status for sure, and just always wanted to drive for one of his heroes. And I just think that at the time they had so much money in the Indy cars and like that, it wasn't up to what they discussed, I suppose. I'm not trying to speak for my dad or speak for anyone else, but just from outside looking in, this wasn't up to the same par as it was portrayed when they first talked about it. So they struggled, but there's certain tracks, even in Cup race, when you start doing shorter tracks and stuff like that, where a driver can make up for a little bit of lacking. Then you start getting these bigger tracks, and unfortunately, your driver plays a big part. But if your motor, your body, your everything's down a little bit, it's just hard to overcome certain things. That certain tracks you don't lift, or you're using so much throttle, not enough brake, it's just hard to overcome. So it didn't go as well as planned for him, and almost in his career, honestly, there's a lot of people in the sport that thought maybe he just got too old and couldn't do it no more. And he got lucky enough for that deal, went the way it went, to get a ride with, I believe it was Dave Carroll at the time, went to the 26 Dr. Pepper car. And I think they were at 18th in points when my dad took over the middle of the season, and they ended up coming back and finished 3rd in points. So they kind of rebuilt his personal confidence and rebuilt his name in the sport, where it feels like, okay, he didn't lose it. He was in a situation wasn't fitting for him.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, And if I remember right, your dad was in his early 40s at the time when he made it to Cup, and so it's slightly understandable that he came late in the game for a rookie, but he definitely still had it in him,
Well, you got to remember, back in those days, that wasn't as uncalled for it is now. You didn't have a lot of 18, 20-year-old rookies back in those days. All those guys were in their 30s and 40s. They made it at this day and age. They say you're over 18, so you're getting too old if you ain't made it already. So the sport has definitely changed with these kids with a little more talent at a younger age. Get some opportunities that people back in the day couldn't afford or couldn't get to. So, it wasn't as uncommon, but yes, he was at the age that he questioned if it was his age or not. So thank God he got into something different, and showed he still had it for, I think he raced for another 5-7 years after that, 6 years, I can't remember exactly. So.
Yeah, since you can't speak for your dad, obviously, on emotion-wise and all that, in his rookie year with AJ Foyt, in his first race with the team, in fact, his former boss and friend Dale Earnhardt had his tragic accident that changed racing in general. And what was your reaction when you heard that happened for you personally?
I think the whole family could probably speak the same thing. I mean, it wasn't for Dale Earnhardt. I think we never, I'm not going to say never, but we might have been a different path coming to the East Coast and actually doing the NASCAR thing on the East Coast. And he taught my dad a lot of things. He taught all of us a lot of things. Like I said, I worked there, and Dale he reminded me of my dad. I mean, he was just as rough on me as my dad was on me, and not in a bad way, just about if you're going to do it right. And, it was a life changer for sure. His death really made me think about driving a lot too. And then I'll be honest, I almost quit racing when Adam Petty died. Me and Adam Petty were really, really close. And when he passed away, I believe it was New Hampshire. I talked to my mom for about 2 weeks. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. I just don't know if I want to give my life for racing. And then, of course, once you get over, not to get over it, but you accept it, your mood changes a little bit. But it definitely makes you go back and look about the choice you made in life, and don't take nothing for granted. Enjoy every day and live every day. As my dad always says, live every day like a Saturday.
Yeah, that was sad to see Adam die at 19. That was like, oh man, I can't imagine what Richard and Kyle Petty went through. That was bad.
It was a rough deal for sure. That kid had a lot of talent. I think he would have made a long ways. And like I said, we raced late model together for 2 years at Caraway up there, and we'd hang out with each other. Like I said, we were both second, third generation drivers in the name, so we hit it off right at the bat. I think it was Jamie Skinner, me, and Adam Petty used to race around here in these little short tracks together where we went, and we always kind of seemed to always come together and be able to work with each other just because of what our fathers accomplished, or I guess someone in our families accomplished. So. Yeah,
you know what else? I should mention that I actually almost attended the race in IndyCar where Dan Weldon passed away. I had a friend where that was a security officer in my home state of Colorado, and he was asked to, be part of the security at the racetrack for that race in Las Vegas. And ultimately, because of circumstances, I wasn't able to make the race after originally accepting the offer. But I watched the race on television, obviously, and saw the early lap collision, the big pileup, and I was shocked. That was probably one of the worst pileups I had ever seen in IndyCar. And after they went to the commercial break, I went upstairs to, make some macaroni and cheese, and then about 10 minutes after the wreck happened, I got a text from my buddy that was the security guard, and he texted me and said, Dan Weldon didn't make it. And I was like, holy cow, what? You know what I mean?
It's always sad with someone, it's always sad when they lose their life doing anything, but especially something they love, for sure. You're watching on a national level. It's definitely, it's more right there at you, for sure. It's always, like I said, it's always sad to watch these guys do what they love, but like my dad always said, and many people raised I talk to, as long as you're doing what you love, you accept the outcome.
Yeah. And obviously they didn't announce it right away, but it was 2 hours later that they announced on television that Dan had passed. But I knew within 10 minutes, and it's like, that was a very tragic deal. And, that reminded me of the Dale Earnhardt crash a little bit, just because of the reception of it,
Oh, yeah. Well, the Earnhardt death there, just for all the wrecks you've seen that man in his whole life, you never think that would be the one, but
yeah.
I always believe when God wants you, he's going to take you, whether it's walking down the street or doing what you love. So when it's your time, it's your time. And I just think Earnhardt was definitely a staple in his community, for sure. And he's the one that made NASCAR what it is today. And of course, things always change, progress, decrease, however you want to look at it. Everyone's got a different opinion on that, but he was definitely the man that everyone went to back in the day to see what the right decision was for the future.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, anyway, after your dad lost his ride with Foyt and then rebuilt his career, and you sort of decided you didn't want to race anymore, what did you do in the years afterwards, as your dad drove for Richard Childress for a couple years and then joined the young Kevin Harvick at his race team?
I think when I quit driving, I decided to get out of race completely. I did the whole, young, pouty, if I can't make it, I don't want to do it at all type deal. I went and started a construction company for about a year, and that was about the time me and my wife was going to have my second kid, our first kid together. And unfortunately, with the start of business, it was making enough money. So I actually went back racing. So I went to Ultra Motorsports. We were talking to Timmy Cahoot and Jimmy Smith about wanting to come work over there, and asked what I could do. I said, well, I can put them on race. I can do whatever you want me to do, whatever you got. I just need a job. And started over there. I can't remember exactly what year, 2003 maybe, 2. Started over there and started off as an underneath mechanic. Within 6 months, I was moved to car chief. So I was running the 2 car at the time. I believe Scott Reese was driving at the time. And I stayed over there for up until Ultra shut down. I actually did a lot of testing for Jimmy Spencer when he drove over there. I did a lot of testing for him when he was going back between Cup, back and forth in trucks. So I did a lot of his testing. I did a lot of Dodge testing for Dodge, aero testing. So I still was driving race car, just wasn't on the competitive level. And then when they shut down, I went there at Abraham's. Ray Abraham started that truck deal with Aaron Crocker, hired me as the car chief over there. And we did that for a year until he shut that truck deal, and that's when I went cup racing. He put me on the 10 car Scott race again, and I car chiefed a 10 car for years. And I can tell you on and on and on for sure. I've been a little bit everywhere. I stayed at Abraham's for 6 years. When they merged with Roush, this wasn't a fit for me. I had a business at the time. I started a graphics company and needed to be home more, so I got a cup race and went nationwide racing with Turner Scott. Car chiefed over there with Jason Leffler and Justin Allgaier. And then when the business started taking off a little bit more, I went back truck racing with Turner. Did that one. So actually the year my dad's last four races, I was actually at Turner's with Turner. I was car chiefing another truck, but I was with a team with my dad when he was driving. And then I went to when they shut down with Red Horse Motorcycling with Timothy Peters and Kennedy and all those guys. Did that about 3 years, and they shut down. We had other business at the time. I started my CBD shop. We were doing really well. Just merged into 3 new shops, and just told my wife, I said, I won't be home with the kids now. So when that deal shut down, I decided to retire from racing and concentrate on my own businesses. And that was kind of my last thing in racing. I just watch and help out if I can, or I think my future nephew-in-law he has a little race team for the Legend cars. So he has Joe Ryan race cars over here. So I try to help out, not physically, but more if they have any questions about the business side or young drivers. And then Dad and Lana Lewis, we help him out a lot. He's a part of the family now. So I'm not as involved as my sister and my father is, but when I am around, I try to help out as much as I can. On the mental side, not much on the race car side. I've been out too long these things change so fast that once you're out for a couple of years, it's just like starting over again, seems like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So does that mean when you were with Evernham that you got to see Patrick Carpentier drive in his debut at Watkins Glen, or?
I actually car chiefed that car when he was first debut.
That was a week after the Montreal race where he almost won for the Canadians and finished second behind your dad's teammate Kevin Harvick. And
Yep.
what was that like when he came from Montreal to New York to drive that car?
It was cool. Like I said, I got a lot of first timers. Like Casey Kane, when he came out, I car chiefed on his truck when he did the first truck race. Patrick, I had a lot of guys the first time ever jumping in a race car. It's always cool to watch these guys with talents in different racing to come to these things and see how they adapt so fast. And it's always interesting. I said at first it's always hectic because you're learning some new things. It's a lot of work on the team side to really get the cars where they need to be for a new stock car driver, where it's not usually doing some other kind of racing, but it always seemed to work out. These guys are, I said, when you got talent, you got talent. And whether you're driving a go-kart, a wheelbarrow, or a race car, if you got talent, it supplies, and all those guys always did. And Patrick was definitely no different than the rest of them. He had talent. Can't remember exactly why he moved back and didn't do the a couple more years of racing, but I got rid of that car, I guess, next year. But yeah, he was a really good guy. He worked his butt off for sure. Had his head down, very focused, and brought a different kind of life for sure, different thought process in the sport, for me at least. Yeah,
he almost won Montreal again the next year, but finished behind Ron Fellows and probably would have won if the race continued, but that was a rain shower, and I think your dad finished fourth, didn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
That was probably the lowest visibility I had seen in a NASCAR race, alongside the Circuit of America inaugural one a few years back, you know?
Yeah, some of those tracks are so hard anyways. I mean, those guys, you got to give those guys talent on those road courses for sure, because some of those things are blind corners anyways. It's going off of muscle memory on how these tracks go these ups and downs, like Sonoma and different places like that. It's very eye-opening. You know, back in those days, you didn't have a lot of road course racing, so you only did them once, twice a year, maybe 3 times. Now you see it a lot more often than it used to be, but it's always interesting to watch these guys go from turning left all day long to be able to go right, left, shifting like that, and just watch how fast they adapt.
Yeah, for sure. So your dad won a couple championships for Kevin Harvick Incorporated in 2007 and clinched the championship, I think, with like a race or two to go in 2009. And then in 2011, in his final year with the team, he seemed on his way to the championship after an early season change from one truck to the other. And then at Texas, he got into it with race driver Kyle Busch, and Kyle was parked for the rest of the weekend. What exactly happened from your perspective?